When I reviewed the Pixel 7 Pro, I said that it was a Pixel 6 Pro with slight improvements. This did cause some people to disagree, but now I'm going to double down on that with the Google Pixel 7. Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and yes, the Pixel 7 is just a better Pixel 6. But that's normal really, so let me tell you why I think this way. In normal Pixel fashion, the Pixel 7 is almost exactly like the Pixel 6, just with a metal camera bar with a hint of glass, rather than a glass and plastic one on the Pixel 6. But starting with the front, we get a 6.3-inch 1080p OLED display with a screen refresh rate of 90Hz. This is covered by Gorilla Glass Victus and features a hole punch for the front camera. So far, it's almost exactly like the Pixel 6, just slightly smaller, but don't worry, there are some decently sized changes. The display looks how you would expect, vibrant in color and smooth thanks to that refresh rate, and the screen is technically brighter, but not as much as Google says that it is. I kid you not, it looks exactly like the Pixel 6, but maybe 10 to 15% brighter. Don't worry though, the back and the frame do have some needed changes. Instead of Gorilla Glass 6, we do get the same Gorilla Glass Victus that we get on the front on both glass panels. And the camera bar is now made out of metal, with the oval being glass for the two cameras, flicker sensor, and laser autofocusing unit, while the random hole is for the microphone, and of course, the other one is for the flashlight. One thing I do enjoy is that the glass is all one color, instead of the two-tone glass that we got on the 6 and 6 Pro. The 7 is actually shorter and slimmer, but only slightly, just like the weight, losing 10 grams to hit that 197 gram weight. This might be because of the battery, but let's keep talking about the design for now. The camera area has a metal band that wraps around the phone, and on the top we get another microphone and that 5G ultra-wideband antenna, which might not be there on non-US versions. I'm not entirely sure on that one. On the left side we get the SIM tray, but just like most Pixels, we do get eSIM support as well. On the right side, we have the shiny power and volume buttons. And yes, you can use the power button actually as a power button. Just gotta stop being lazy and make sure that those settings are set how you would like, because there are a bunch of different ways to activate your assistant without using just the power button. Just make sure not to mess with those accessibility settings unless you really need to. Then on the bottom, we get the second loudspeaker, which pairs with the top one and creates a decent sounding stereo feel. It's not the loudest, but it's definitely not the worst that I've tested. On the other side is where the other microphone lives, and in the middle is where we get the USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 port that supports 20 watts of wired charging. Overall, I love the look of this phone. Sure, it looks very similar to the Pixel 6, but it is refreshed and comes with how the camera area should have looked in the first place, reminding me of the reverse of what happened with the Google Nexus 1 that HTC made. The phone feels nice in the hands, feeling airy, if that's even a word, even though the phone is technically heavy. It feels sturdy, but remember it is glass and metal, so keep a case on this phone if you do drop it a lot. And now we can talk about what makes this phone actually work. Going back to the front, I do have to mention that we do get an in-screen fingerprint sensor, which is still the same as the Pixel 6. It doesn't work 100%, my bank app can definitely vouch on that one. But getting into the phone, it doesn't really matter because we do have Face Unlock once again, which actually works pretty well. Then we can actually use the phone, which is fast, but not the best. Still, this Google Tensor G2 chip is perfect for this phone. While most of the processor shines behind the scenes, with calculating AI actions like photo processing, the actual processor isn't slow, allowing for a seamless user experience while using the phone. At least that's the idea. See, just like the Pixel 7 Pro, having an in-house processor doesn't mean anything if the software isn't optimized perfectly. Now, by no means does this phone beat any of the newer processors, being roughly 25% slower in benchmarks to the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chip that launched around the same time in this small phone, and doesn't even compare to the Apple A16 chip. 41% slower, in case you were wondering. And the Pixel 7 is 18% faster in multi-core scores when compared to the Pixel 6, if you were wondering about that. But of course, none of the benchmarks really matter because real usage is technically what matters. This is a fast and snappy phone that doesn't really see the best performance in gaming, but still very fast overall. But so does the Pixel 6. I don't believe that Google is actually optimizing the hardware with the software perfectly, because then this processor would be a lot better than what it's saying that it is. The RAM that is paired is 8GB, and let's be honest, I've never really had any issue with any phones that had 6GB or more of RAM, so I think that having more than 8GB isn't entirely needed. While using the phone, I never really had any issue with multitasking, like no apps were closing in the background, so that's pretty good. This phone does come with 128 or 256 gigabytes of UFS 3.1 storage, which is more than enough for most people. And this battery, of course, is good, which is why Google put a 4,355 milliamp cell in this phone, or a 5.5% smaller cell when compared to the Pixel 6. Of course, this means that the battery life is good, right? Well, no. This is where the optimization really makes no sense to me. For me, an hour of screen on time means about 30% of battery gone. So for me, this is a terrible battery. I could expect 2-day battery life, but I doubt the average person will allow this phone to even last a day. I looked up the average screen time that people will spend on their phones daily, and it's over 7 hours, which sounds insane, but even if we cut that in half, I still don't think that this phone will make it. When I use my phone, it's on full screen brightness, 90Hz at 1080p, maxed out everything. I rarely ever play games on my phone, so it is wild for me that people can actually pull over 5 hours of screen on time on any phone. But we do get 20 watts of both wired and wireless charging, so I guess battery life isn't entirely the worst. But just like Apple, you can only get those wireless speeds with a proprietary Google Pixel Stand 2nd Gen. You do get reverse wireless charging as well, which works nicely if you're trying to charge earbuds or a watch. Glad to see Google keep this since the Pixel 5. This is a 5G phone, this one allowing for an ultra-wideband support. Judging by the $100 price increase from the unlocked to Verizon version, I would assume that it's not standard. But it could be. It's just like the different colors with storage, how you can't even buy the Lemongrass 256GB model from Verizon, according to Google. And the only 256GB model that you can get for AT&T is Obsidian. The last hardware things that we get are IP68 dust and water resistance, a Google Pixel standard excluding the A series, since the Pixel 3. We also get Android 13 on this phone, which is very similar to how this phone works, being that Android 13 is what Android 12 should have been, with the promise of 5 years of software updates, ending October 2025 for Android versions and October 27 for security patches. With that said, the Pixel 6 started this version split from the security patches, so we'll see if Google stops with Android 16 on the Pixel 7 with security updates while the Pixel 9 will have Android 18. Confusing, right? And of course, Android 13 is a nicer, more polished version of Android 12, but it's not groundbreaking and feels like how Android 12 should have been in the first place. Rather, it should have been a whole new software experience. And the very last bits that I can talk about is that this phone has Bluetooth 5.2 and Wi-Fi 6E support, which, if you needed to know if this phone has it, now you know. While software updates will probably last longer than most non-iPhones, knowing that in 3 years this phone will essentially stop being supported is concerning, seeing that after 3.5 years, the OnePlus 7 Pro stopped being supported, and it wasn't really left in the best shape. What I'm saying is that the hardware for the Pixel 7 seems nice today, but hopefully Google can optimize the operating system for the processor, or else that 3 years of support might leave the phone feeling very old. Just like every Pixel device before it, the main focus is, of course, the cameras. This time Google made the cameras better than last, but not by much. Starting with the front, we get a 10.8 megapixel sensor that is no longer different from the Pro version, but it is still a fixed focus sensor. While images come out looking pretty good, the high detail is added after the shot. This becomes more obvious when you record video, which now supports 4K at 60 frames per second, a huge jump from 1080p 30 frames per second on the Pixel 6, and really any other Pixels besides the Pro versions. Still, it is a nice camera that gets enhanced by that pixel magic. Then on the rear we get two cameras, starting with the main 50 megapixel sensor, which of course is focusable and optically stabilized. This allows for some spectacular 12.5 megapixel shots, and even allows you to crop into the sensor to get a 2x shot without any loss of detail. This does allow it to feel like it has a telephoto sensor out of this camera, which is kind of the best of both worlds. But that's it, no more optical zooming because that's left for the Pro model. We do get some 4K 60 capabilities, just like the front camera, and the cinematic mode just feels unusable at 1080p. Then of course the Pixel gimmicks like motion modes and magic eraser, all which feel like the portrait modes. Just a way for companies to stand out, but the consumer will ultimately stop caring about it or never cared about it in the first place. Moving on to the ultra-wide, this is a 12 megapixel sensor with a fixed focus. That's normal for the price, I guess, with the exception of the Nothing phone, but this means no macro abilities, which have been in a bunch of other phones for a while now. This mixed with the ultra-wide only having a 114 degree field of view, while the 7 Pro gets 125 degrees, just leaves me wishing that Google did more with these sensors. I might be nitpicking, but the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro did have the same 114-degree sensor last year, so how hard would it have been to use the same one from the 7 Pro? Either way, the sensor looks good and comes close to matching the main sensor in quality and color, but to me, it needs some work. To be fair, I'm not much of an ultra-wide photographer, but a Pixel review wouldn't be a review if it didn't have a camera section and a slideshow. So here's the latter. Enjoy. Overall, awesome for its price point, but I don't know, maybe I just thought that it could have been a little bit better for very little extra. For the average person, or maybe even someone that's interested in tech, this is a good and safe buy. It's possible to find Samsung S21 Ultras in this price point, even new, but you might be giving up software availability for that age difference. But walking into a store to buy this phone at $600 or even less, this is the best flagship for a budget price that you can actually buy. I can say that the Pixel 6 and 7 series both have what people need, does fine with the processor, enough to where most people won't even see it being an issue, but the battery life is pretty bad. For the size of the cell, I really don't understand how it can be that bad, but it does charge fairly fast. The phone also works fast, so you don't need to use the screen for a long time. For some reason though, I actually enjoyed using the Pixel 6 more than the Pixel 7, to the point where I started reviewing another device and almost forgot to review the Pixel 7. I didn't use this for that long because it just felt boring. I think boring is good for the average consumer, but not good overall. It does things well, but I can't give you a reason to buy this phone that other phones don't have. Like I said, you can find a new S21 Ultra and even used S22 Ultras for less than what this phone is new, and you'll get way more out of the Samsung phones. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for clean stock Android with amazing cameras and okay battery life, the Pixel 7 is your go-to. Or settle for a used Pixel 7 Pro for the same price. And that's my review of the Pixel 7, the boring Pixel that looks better now. But what do you think? Is boring perfect? Is this phone perfect for you? Let me know what you think, and as always, thanks for watching.